Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And Stage 3 of the CDL 2021 certainly got off to a rocky start, and the players aren't necessarily too happy about this major Warzone update that's coming over these last 24 hours or so, wreaking havoc, no pun intended, on the start of Stage 3 for the season. Tweet your thoughts on this in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you are new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. First of all, I wanted to mention this from Lion because of course Dallas Empire played today, and it was going to be interesting to see how they could potentially rebound from what was once again a disappointing Stage 2. I mean, they come third in Stage 2, second in Stage 1, not really the end of the world, but they haven't really been the team, given they are the reigning world champions, that we necessarily expected to see, but they certainly did come out with a fire today, as we will look at, well, at least in map 2, 3, and 4, and also this from Lion. I thought these cards were really clean. The Toronto Ultra Champions one, they also played on the day as well, so it's a very interesting matchups we will get into in a second, and these were the two matchups. Empire played against Legion, Ultra played against the Florida Mutineers. Both of these matchups had a new team, right? The Legion had Tempin for the first time that we've seen that team in the lineup, and then of course our Mutineers as well. Havoc comes in for Slacked. Will it work out to their world best interests? We will look at that in just a second. But also, of course, this is the main story of the day, really, the fact of this, the whole Warzone stuff that's happened these past 24 hours or so. So Verdansk, this old map, it gets nuked and all that type of stuff. I'm sure you guys saw yesterday. Nadeshot was actually in their like promo video, which I did think was pretty cool. One thing I thought as well, look at this camo he's got on his gun here. Obviously it's kind of dark on the screen for you guys, but you know, it's kind of nice, right? It seems like someone's actually taken some time to design this. Was the LA Thieves camo in the, well, the actual game itself, it's just, well, it's just black and red and a bit of white, I'm pretty sure, right? There's no camo on it, or there's no like team logo on it or anything, so, you know, somehow they can do such a great job here, but not in the actual game, unfortunately. But as he says, buff the weevil, bring it the HBR back to my, well, Nadeshot memes that are as old as time. These are my only wishes, and that's kind of the stuff that was going on. Octave wasn't too happy, like they dropped an atomic bomb, all they did was effectively reskin the map. I saw that Summit is in the map now, which I thought was kind of cool, but I don't really play much Warzone. You couldn't make a new map out of that, like, given all the things that went down, and well, this is the kind of stuff that was happening. Now, of course, everyone wanted to get on and play this, right? There was a lot of traffic in the servers, and people wanted to get online, wanted to see what was going on, play the new update, and that meant that the servers were put under a little bit of stress. Well, you know, more than just a little bit of stress, as Warzone News says right here. You're right, we've never seen it before, because the servers are so queued up and no one can actually get onto them. So we come into the CDL, this is kind of funny early on, we've got the whole 80s theme, right, because they're going back to like a 1984 version of Verdansk or whatever. It's like, hey, that's the idea they're going for, fair play, it's pretty cool. I think it was a good laugh on the day, and honestly some of the music was pretty good, like having some different tunes than just screw every other map was certainly pretty refreshing. And the mullet on Chance is just absolutely spectacular. Nameless is going out of control as well. So if you combine these two, you've effectively got the Dr. Disrespect look with the mullet and the glasses, all that type of stuff. I'm not sure how he manages to keep that up on a regular basis. But as you can see, the matches were just about to start, and then Envoy comes out with this. So back-to-back days, one of our scrims has been chalked because somehow the Warzone update is messing with our 60Hz Cold War servers. What an absolute joke, says Envoy. Very frustrated. I mean, the guys, the pros behind the scenes that weren't even playing today, they were having issues actually practicing and getting good practice in ahead of their matches tomorrow, and then the teams that were playing also having some issues as well. So Envoy, I believe they're probably scrimming against Seattle, given that Joey Nubsy comes out and says, what a coincidence that both days this Warzone reskin is getting hyped and getting released. We can't even practice. Good thing Stage 3 doesn't start for, oh yeah, it started 28 minutes ago, right? So, yeah, very frustrating and understandably so. I mean, of course, look, Warzone gets preference, that is just how it is, but the fact that these types of things are affecting, like, yeah, $300 million league or whatever, as people always say, is certainly very frustrating, I think, and it was pretty frustrating for me watching. I was like, okay, hang on, when am I going to get to bed today? Are these matches ever going to finish? Eventually, we did finally get underway, but I'm sure pretty frustrating the fact that the pros can't get on just because there's server queues and such, and apparently even it's messing with their 60Hz Cold War servers that they play on from, you know, private matches and such on their own, like, on their own CDL servers, you guess, but for some reason the Warzone update is still messing with that, and they haven't really figured a way around it. Whatever, hopefully it's only a one-off thing, but understandably, the frustrations that came out, and then of course, well, Dallas versus Paris was meant to start, Shotzzy couldn't get into the lobby, Master's like, you know, quick reboot friends, we shall go again, and as Pamaj says, this is the type of stuff that you might be encountering, you know, some maintenance undergoing type stuff, or some sort of server queue, which is, you know, what could you really do? Okay, here it is, server queue, quit to desktop, and of course, I'm sure the pros were going through similar things, trying to get into the lobbies, and as TacticalRab Academy says, she should turn your cables at the COD League, get this stuff sorted out. I mean, it's not the stuff that's the greatest look for the CDL, right? Whereas all the people in the stream saying, okay, well, you know, dislike bombing it and, you know, waiting for like 50 minutes. I feel bad for like, you know, Chance and Miles, especially where they're trying to cast this and then, well, they go into the very first map. I was super hyped, right? Okay, we're 35 minutes late, but whatever, we're getting into game one, Garrison Hardpoint Dallas versus Paris, and guess what? Classic drops out of the lobby like halfway through. I think it was like 60 to 60 or something like that. Classic drops out. The game will now be restarted, and this worked in the favor actually of Paris Legion because they hit the restart and they come out with a 250 to 111 1 hardpoint victory up against the Dallas Empire. This was surprising to me, very impressive as well from Paris. I mean, this is certainly a pretty good map for them, and I think the map set on the whole was pretty good for Paris, but Dallas have also been pretty good on this map, so I thought that Dallas coming into this series, I probably would have given them a 3-1. That's the way it goes in the end, but I'm not exactly in the fashion that I expected to, because okay, Paris pretty much dominate this first hardpoint after the restart. Looking better with Temp. It really wasn't Temp that did the heavy lifting this map. I mean, well, we'll look at this Search and Destroy in a second, but I think Temp went like 15 and 17, or that was his storyline, or the scoreline, not storyline at a time. I love talking about storylines. It was really the other guys on the team that were putting up the big numbers. I mean, Scraps had an absolute monster series we'll get into, but one of the maps he didn't look exactly so good was on Express Search and Destroy. And big shout out to Crim, right? He's got to be like the best S&D player on Express so far this season, because since Express came in for Stage 2, he's had some monster games on this map. I mean, I remember we went like 13 and 3. He's had like many double-digit games. I wonder what his like overall KD is on this map, because of course it's a map that he played to great effect back in Black Ops 2 on complexity, and now he's sitting here still going 10 and 0 against a team like the Paris Legion. Of course, you would generally expect a new team like Paris bringing in Temp, probably not got too much practice in their Search and Destroy, and Dallas are probably thinking very much so after they lost at the Stage 2 Major. Right, our Search and Destroy was a bit iffy at times. Certainly our hardpoints have been a bit inconsistent as well, so we really need to step it up in all the game modes. Probably doing a lot of practice and preparation for a number of these modes, and Crimsix well, certainly bearing the fruits of that here. 10 and 0 in the Search and Destroy. That's not something you see every day. I think, well, Bance, of course, did something very similar indeed at the Major against Atlanta FaZe in the finals. Thought this was cooler from Breaking Point as well. This, well, scoreagami type idea. So these are all the score lines that a player has got so far this season. So if it has occurred, there's obviously a blue thing here, and if it hasn't occurred, it's white. Now, so effectively, this is like, I think this is just in hardpoint games so far this season, yeah, in a hardpoint. So 27 and 15 that Scraps went into the game 1. That had never been achieved before so far this season, so no one had gone 27 and 15. There's some other notable ones around here, right, which you'd imagine will be filled in at some point. I thought especially notable that stood out to me here was this is a Seam, 22 and 5 he got on raids. I'm pretty sure this dot as well as Dylan, 13 and 34 on maybe was it Garrison or something up against Atlanta FaZe. Wasn't exactly the prettiest one, maybe it was Apocalypse or something like that. I kind of forget at this point, but I thought this is a pretty cool concept. Maybe we'll see more of this going forward as well. And then we go into a control, and actually, despite Scraps having a monster map at 24 and 14, the rest of the team can't quite get the job done. Crim has another, well, some pretty standout performances at times. The entire Dallas Empire really was firing here on the checkmate control. They went a huge offense. I mean, Paris, they took a little bit of a slow route to try and get to that point to get the Dallas guys off it. They stack up as you do now in control, and they get the win. And then we go into the final hardpoint as well on checkmate, and Dallas closed out. So fair play. I thought the map set was actually kind of looking relatively nice for Paris, but okay, they come out here. Of course, you never really know what a new team's going to look like anyway with Temp in. Their great maps could be very different indeed, and Dallas get the job done, as we would expect them to, but getting back maybe to some of the form that you're thinking Dallas are going to bring right here. So no upsets on the day, or at least this first series wasn't an upset. The second series, I mean, you guys probably already know what happened because you watched it anyway, but let's get into it regardless. So the final series of the day was, well, as you can see right here, these are the overall stats then for the Paris Legion Dallas Empire match. Crim goes 73 and 62, but the first map he had a shocker. Like, first map he was like 14 and 27 double negative, so the rest of the games he really turned it around, and Scraps with the Krig in hand now is putting up numbers. The temp change doesn't immediately pay off, but I certainly think Paris Legion are still a scary team, and at least when you look at from a pure statistics perspective, probably this average series here from Temp was probably better than what you get on average out of Fire, at least in terms of slaying, so probably a step in the right direction I still think for Paris, but of course Dallas Empire are pretty tough competition to play in your very first match. Thought this is kind of funny as well, like Fire tweeted this out, I'm pretty sure this wasn't intentional to be like I'm chilling, they dropped me, and now they're still losing, stuff like this. He did end up deleting this because, well, Jacob says in reply, I saw that, very bad timing, he says, saying, I didn't mean it to come out when the game just had finished, of course, given that they dropped me, trying to give it a shade maybe, but that's kind of how it was perceived. And this is then the final series of the day, Ultra versus the Mutineers, the defending champions of Stage 2, coming up against the Florida Mutineers, new team, of course, with Havoc coming in to the lineup. Would it make too much difference for them? Not really. I mean, game 1 checkmate hardpoints, early on it looked very competitive, Mutineers seemed like they were coming out with the fire. All of these maps, they were relatively close, and this is kind of, classic Florida really so far this season. They compete very well with some of the top teams, and clearly Ultra now are a top team. They compete very impressively indeed, but then when it comes down to crunch time, they can't quite get over the line, and it seems to be continuing really with Havoc. He certainly didn't have the greatest series, but you're not expecting anyone to really necessarily come in and dominate. I think it's probably about time he got his opportunity. Whether it's going to be enough for this team, who really knows, but at the same time, Ultra, seem to be very scary indeed. So here we go. I mean, Insight goes 22 and 17, really the slaying across the board here on checkmate was impressive, and Insight's slaying performance will continue as we will look at, especially in the control. Absolutely remarkable remarkable scenes. And well, game number 2, Awakening has a 13 bomb here on Express. This was kind of crazy because Ultra went up pretty heavily early on, and then Mutineers fought their way back. It went to a round 11. It was a chaotic round 11, to be honest. Mutineers probably should have won it. There were some turn-ons going on. Cammy was like smoking people left, right, and center. I'm not sure how Bance survived one of those situations, but well, Ultra got over the line. They clutch up in a round 11. That's pretty impressive to see from Ultra, right? Because at the Major, you didn't see them necessarily having to clutch up super hard on certain maps. They were just winning series relatively comfortably. But the fact that they can actually still clutch up in crunch time is very impressive and shows that this team really does have a world championship kind of potential, as of course they do have, given they just won a championship. And then the final map of the series, also a very interesting one here on Raid Control. I mean, as you can see, this scoreboard is outrageous. Awakening has a 40 bomb. I guess I'll just make it a little bit bigger for you guys to consider. Awakening drops 40 and 36. I mean, what are those engagements? 40 kills, 36 deaths. Like, okay, this is Awakening is like your, well, not your main AR. Skies is the main AR, but Awakening's like the second AR, and he's getting, I mean, not twice the amount of engagements as Havoc, but not too far off, right? That is, well, kind of insane to see. Neptune didn't have the greatest map. And on the other side, if you're Cammy dropping similar numbers really to what Awakening's doing in very similar roles, really. And Insight, though, well, in comparison to Skies, is putting up 38 and 18. I mean, this kid is just out of control. Every time I watch him play, this guy's trying people. It's very impressive to see what the Ultra guys have been up to as of late. And as you can see, these are the overall series statistics. Despite Insight not really doing too much on map 1 or map 2, he ends up plus 28 over the series after his plus 20 performance on Raid Control. I mean, the final round was just a complete, well, a complete bloodbath, to be honest. And Bance, after his phenomenal stage 2 major performance, is kind of chilling here at 55 and 60 when the rest of his team absolutely dominate. And well, it was kind of interesting to see, really, the fact that the Major, it was Bance and Clinics, really, the two guys taking over maps and, well, getting them over the line. This time, it's actually their ARs that come to play, and in very impressive fashion similarly. So Neptune and Havoc, I mean, we did have the question, really, with the Florida Mutineers, with this, well, team, with Neptune and Havoc, would Havoc be able to bring more out of Neptune than was, well, Slacked was capable of? Doesn't really seem like that for the first series. As I say, with Paris and Mutineers both, they played against tough competition today, but these are the type of teams that you're expecting a team like this to beat down the line if they want to be championship contenders, as I'm sure they are intending to be. Not necessarily sure that's going to be the case with this squad. Maybe some more refinements are required over time. I'm sure roster mania is going to continue throughout the stage and going forward as well, with world champs such a major target, of course, for these squads. Top 8 in the league, get there. These were the final moments of the match, but intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section. I wonder whether this Warzone stuff will, whether the issues will go away to some degree. Very frustrating for the players tonight. I was kind of frustrated as a fan, trying to watch it from home and not knowing when these issues would be resolved. Thankfully, things did get figured out over time, but it just once again shows that despite the CDL having all the budget now that it does, it still comes second fill to, well, some other things, and I wish there was ways to get around this, but at the end of the day, it's probably not something they really expected to have an issue with. And I mean, of course, you can expect that the servers are going to get overloaded. Whether they knew that would affect the CDL stuff, however that works, and well, is unknown. Maybe they can fix it going forwards, but I'm not necessarily betting on it. Intrigued to hear your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm. I know you enjoyed this content. Other people like you may enjoy this content as well, and I'll grow the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always. Take care, and I will see you next time.